guys know, there's an election. If you're seeing everything that's going on outside in the community now, you're watching the signs that have been put up. Mailers may have hit your house. There's been a lot of activity going on at events of handing out flyers. Uh, the work that is still going on. We've been doing presentations almost daily at different groups. A lot of times I'm being very transparent. I'll tell you that the reality is that 90% of your voting population lives in the retirement communities to the north. So we're spending a lot of time making sure that we're talking with those groups and making sure they understand what's at stake here for the district. So I can give you all the information. It's information you can have. You can have this presentation. What I can't do is tell you how to vote. So that's obviously that's it's a violation of the law, but it's not my place to tell you that. But I do want to tell you the effects of the election. We have two ballot measures that I'm going to talk about: bond and override. And so, can you page back on that piece? I'm sorry, Corey, that's my fault. One more slide. You'll see the demographics of the district. If you're not aware, the district is made up of over 23,000 kids, pre-K through 12. So you think about that. Corey knows the pre-K world very well. But there's quite a few kids that we're servicing in 140 square miles, which is from Glendale Avenue to Joe Max, all the way from El Mirage Road over to the White Tank Mountains. So sounds a little bit like a country song, but you think about the vast amount of area that we serve, and you see on there 24 schools that are in that area, along with 2 programs. And then we also have, in addition, the support services building in the district office. So there's really 28 buildings that are cared for within the district, and also to service all of our students. And then you'll also see, I think, as a really valuable point on there, Dysart is the largest employer in the Surprise and El Mirage community. So a lot of people who are working in our schools also live in the community, and I think that's valuable. The next slide will show you a lot of the achievements of the district. I think it's really always valuable to talk about the fact that there is academic achievement that's important. It being an A-rated district really resonates with people to know that that we value having strong academic success for our students, preparing them for with skills for life beyond high school. And then you'll notice 18 A's, 6 B's. That's an important piece because obviously every school is striving to be an A school. We'll have new letter grades out here soon, and we're expecting that to increase. And so the other parts of you'll see some other bullets on there that are significant. I mean, our high school, Shadow Ridge, was recognized as a blue ribbon school. Very few schools received that honor. That was the only high school in the entire state that's received that honor within the last, I want to say it's like 5 or 6 years in Arizona. So very significant. Purple Star schools are for our military families. It's new to Arizona, and we're the only district that has any Purple Star schools. And that gives support to military families and for those kids. And that's at Luke Elementary, Shadow Ridge, and Valley Vista. Freedom Traditional is ranks really high, but I think it's important to note. Every time I see that, I was at El Mirage Elementary the other day, and that principal is bragging about how he's only a couple percentage points behind Freedom, and I love to see that aspect of we're servicing all kids, and even a high Title I population and how they're performing. There's a lot of pride in the success at each one of these schools. So that's important. You see that the next one, diploma seals. I think it's just important that we have a wide, and it's a diverse population within our kids that they're earning seals before they leave high school, whether it be they're bilingual in the arts, it's civics and finance. There's a variety of these seals. Dysart leads the entire state in the number of seals that are being earned by high school students. So it's really been advertised well, and how we can help kids show those successes, and it helps them put on their transcripts and obviously for college. We have a couple of administrators that were recognized by Maricopa County as being administrators of the year, and our finances. Recently, they went through an audit again, and they've achieved that high status, showing that the district is fiscally responsible. So, on the next slide, it's going to tell you about the work that was done to form, to really get to this point of calling for an election. 2 years ago, I was part of, with another cabinet member, of leading a committee for 6 months that we worked on studying the district, every aspect. We even took tours of the buildings and things like that. We studied all the finances and every issue involving the district. That they decided in March of the end of that school year, in 23, to go out for a bond. Excuse me, I'm sorry, 24. That bond did not pass in 20, and we know that a year ago. So the bond didn't pass. And really where that left us also is that we decided to delay the override, because then we knew that was going to expire as well. Because an override election has to happen every 5 years. So, and I'll explain the difference between those two in a minute, but that failed. So now we're now pursuing. We reconvened that committee after the failure, had more conversations, and the committee recommended to the board to go out for both a bond and override, and that's why we're doing that now, is to go into those two. The difference, I will tell you, bond. Anytime you hear the word bond, it's for long-term items like an air conditioner, a bus, new doors for safety, anything that's going to last a long time. Roofing on a building, if anybody's familiar with what's going on at Kingswood right now. So those kind of things. When you say override, it's what they call it. Maintenance and operations overrides are things that are daily expenses. Okay, so those are the two things to be aware of when you hear this election information. All right. Corey, I don't know if you have the ability to play that presentation, but and do we want to even hear that? I'm not sure if this one, and we can allow people to view it on their own. Corey, I'm going to take your thoughts on this. This explains the difference between a bond and an override. I would always say if the committee wants to watch the video, we can, or you could do it on your own time. It tells you, in essence, the element of, we get the majority of our funding. 90% of it comes from state income tax, state funding. And then another 10% comes federally, and it's very specific to federal funding, like IDEA funding for special education. That's a very specific fund that comes in that has to be spent a certain way, but only 10% of our budget comes from the federal level. 90% of our budget comes at the state level, and Corey could also give you a lot more elaboration if we want questions about special education. So,
do you guys want me to play it, or I can share this so that it's you guys are able to view it later if you prefer?
I can view it later.
Okay.
Well, and I will tell you, it's great that video. If you have questions on what is the difference between how they do funding, it's a nice little synopsis in about 5 minutes to watch. So, if you'll look at the override slide that was just put up, you'll see on there that the last override was passed in 2020. So we know it's 2025 now. It's going to be up here soon. That override will expire at the end of the school year. And that current override is worth $26.9 million. And we'll get into the specifics of what that provides in a minute. But that does supplement the funding that the state provides. I will tell you, a lot of people, when they think, hey, the funding we get, for the state, we understand it's like not equal to what we feel is appropriate sometimes or whatever else. It's about $7,000 per student. But the intent of that funding is to provide the very basic essence of an education. It's not intended to provide all the additions that you would normally see within a school. That's up to a community to decide on their own. That's why they have override elections. Okay. And so you can only have up to 15% of your total budget be on an override. So if our entire budget was $100 million, the most we could ask for from the community is $15 million. Our budget is higher than that, so we can ask for up to almost $27 million. On the next slide, you will see related to override some of the expenses. So we'll take a look at that one here in just a second. So you'll see on there of that 26.9 million, you'll see the types of things that money is used for. For example, see on there that we use it really to supplement teacher pay, and it helps us to be competitive. Right now, the starting salary teacher on average is about $50,000. Okay. And I would tell you that you're seeing, even if you work for 30 years, you're seeing some elements of teachers topping out at anywhere between 80 to 90,000 on the scale. And it depends on a lot of factors, but starting at 50. So we supplement to help be competitive to get it to that 50,000 range through the override funding. You'll also see there's additional services. We provide interventions, different types of resources of certain people that are working on our campuses to provide supports to different populations. That's also paid for in there. You'll also see the class sizes in there. 28 to 1 is the current average class size. Obviously, we would never make a kindergarten class 28 students. Okay, but what I would tell you on average is 28 to 1. So kindergarten is much smaller. As you move up towards high school and into your final years of high school, you'll see classes get much larger in size. All of us remember probably in our time in high school of, you're thinking about your senior year government class may have had like 34 kids in it, but we didn't really pay attention to that. That's a normal piece. If this override doesn't pass, that's one of the fastest areas that could be impacted, because that's people. When you talk 27 million, because I can tell you right now, if I were to take and get rid of every administrator in the entire district of Dysart, that's only worth $5 million. If I were to eliminate the entire transportation department, that's only $10 million. The override is 27 million, and you think how much money is being used to supplement teachers, provide these additional resources, make sure class sizes are smaller, and then provide additional things like music, the art, athletics, and help to supplement to make sure those programs are happening. So that gives you an idea of where that happens. If it fails, we have to take away 9 million of you take a 1/3 off. So every year you get rid of 1/3 of that override. So you would eliminate 9 million, then the next year 9, and then the next year. You could keep going out for the override to try to get it back on, and that's happened before in Dysart back in 2013, 14, I believe. So that gives you a little bit about the override. On the next slide, you'll see some information on bond. The last bond was passed in 2006. Obviously, that funding is provided for those capital items. I'll show you a list here in a second. And if we fail on the bond election, the current bonds that are in place will expire in 2028 as they pay those off through our property tax. So that means in 2028, that tax would be zero. Right now, people are paying in the community are paying about $5 on their property tax on average, $5 a month is what they're paying right now for the current bond. So what does a bond include? Facility renovations. If you guys are familiar with, I mentioned Kingswood roofing. Sometimes it's what we call weatherization. Right now, a couple of our schools are really deteriorating on the outside. That's what leads to leaks and mold and other things, which is why we all paint our houses. The same idea. HVAC. We had to cancel school earlier this year. One day at Marley, we had a major plumbing pipe issue break at Dysart High, where we had to cancel school for a day. Things are breaking out there, and because these buildings, a lot of the renovations were done and buildings were put in place between 2003 and 2009 with all the rapid growth. So these schools are aging out. And that's why there's a lot of need within. We talk about facilities. You'll also see on there the busing. 70% of our buses are 15 years or older, which means when they get to a certain age, you can't even find the parts for them anymore, and we have to retire those buses. And when you buy a new bus, it takes about almost up to 2 years for the new one to arrive. So just have an understanding that even if we pass the bond, we will work as fast as we can to bring new buses on, into the system. But currently, if it doesn't pass, you're going to see more impacts on transportation because the buses are aging out, and we can't. We retired just this past year 11 buses, but we only brought in, I believe it was 5. So we're not even able to keep up anymore. And part of that's the funding, but and the age of these buses. And another piece I want to add in there, just so you know, is capital funding by the state was suspended between the years 2012 and like 2018. $60 million never arrived in Dysart that the state was supposed to provide. And that never happened. They slowly started to provide capital funding again. Right now, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing again. But that was a huge impact to the district because they didn't ever get to see that money. That also impacts safety. Lockdown systems keep failing. We have fire doors that are aged out that we have to replace. We also want to have automatic doors and other things, locks on doors. Some of those safety needs we really know are important. Number one priority of our community is always safety. We're seeing that deteriorate. And then Asante area, if you've been up in that community, and it's kind of a nightmare of traffic when you go near the 303 in Grand. But that area is growing so fast that we need a new K-8 school desperately up there. We got so big at Asante, we started to bus kids. So all of our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders jump on a bus for up to about 45 minutes to drive down to Cimarron. If this doesn't pass, our next move will have to be probably looking at turning Asante into a K3 and busing kids down, the 4th and 5th graders down. And so we won't have any option because we run out of room. The school only has the capacity to hold 1,200 kids. So kindergarten classes, I think, and Corey, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's 7 or 8 kindergarten classes at Asante right now, that's a handful to deal with when you think about it. So it's a lot of young kids on a campus right now in that community. And then finally, you'll see also high school land, purchasing some land up in that area as well to make sure we build another high school. Willow Canyon went this past year, went from 1,800 kids to over 2,100 kids, and we're expecting it to probably top 2,400 kids next year. That's just based on the growth. So the total bond was $127 million. That's all based on specific needs. There's nothing in there that's like, hey, let's give some money to help buy other things you want to buy or whatever. It's exact needs to make sure it happens and we get things fixed. That scale right there you're seeing in front of you. That shows you the blue lines on that chart are the current bond tax dollars. So you can see it age out over the next 3 years. It'll be gone. If you pass the bond, those are the new green marks. That would be the new bond in place. And you'll see that it would no tax increase. And that's what we've been explaining to people. There is no increase. It would stay the same. And actually, taxes for the entire community, because we didn't ask for very much money in the bond, would go down in around 2030, where you're only paid about half of that. So instead of $5 a month, on the average, it'd be about $250 a month. So really being responsible fiscally to the community. So if you take we all know what an assessed value of a home is. We get it in our tax report to our house. So an assessed value, the average house in Dysart assesses at about $205,000. That's not the true value of the home. That's really on a home that's probably between $400,000 and $500,000. So if you take the assessed value of an average home, you'll see that the bond impact would be about $5.50 a month for the bond, or $65 a year if we approve this. And then the override would be about almost $20 a month, or $232 a year. So the way I heard one of the members of the PAC that's working to help support the bond, the way he described it, he said that's 25. He goes, if you look at it, he goes, that means it's about $25 a month. And he said that wouldn't even feed we wouldn't even be able to buy dinner at Red Robin for $25 a month, $300 a year. We're only talking in the end, when you really look at it, it's a very limited amount of money as the way it's obviously, when you take a look at the true tax impact. It's probably a little more editorialized than I should, but the last slide tells you voting, what's happening there. The last opportunity to register to vote was October 6th. That's already passed. The ballots are being sent to people now. So you're going to see them start arriving in the mails, and then people can start sending those in. It's an entirely mail-in election. The last day that you can mail it in is October 28th. If people miss that deadline, they could drop it off, and the district office is a dropping point. So you could drop there.